Oman is a country on the southeastern coast of the Arabian Peninsula in West Asia. It overlooks the mouth of the Persian Gulf. It shares land borders with Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates and Yemen. The capital and largest city is Muscat. Oman has a population of 5.28 million as of 2024, which is a 4.6% population increase from 2023 and is the 123rd most populous country. The coast faces Arabian Sea on the southeast, and Gulf of Oman on the northeast. The Madha and Musandam exclaves are surrounded by United Arab Emirates on their land borders with Strait of Hormuz, which it shares with Iran, and Gulf of Oman forming Musandam's coastal boundaries. From the 17th century, Omani Sultanate was an empire, vying with Portuguese and British empires for influence in Persian Gulf and Indian Ocean. At its peak in 19th century, Omani influence and control extended across the Strait of Hormuz to Iran and Pakistan and as far south as Zanzibar. In 20th century, Sultanate came under the influence of United Kingdom. For over 300 years, the relations built between the two empires were based on mutual benefit. The UK recognized Oman's geographical importance as a trading hub that secured British trading lanes in Persian Gulf and Indian Ocean and protected London's interests in the Indian subcontinent. Oman is an absolute monarchy led by a sultan with power passed down through the male line. Qaboos bin Said was the sultan from 1970 until his death on the 10th of January 2020. Qaboos, who died childless, named his cousin, Haytham bin Tariq, as his successor in a letter, and the ruling family confirmed him as the new Sultan of Oman. Formerly a maritime empire, Oman is the oldest continuously independent state in the Arab world. It is a member of United Nations, Arab League, Gulf Cooperation Council, Non-Aligned Movement, and Organization of Islamic Cooperation. It has oil reserves ranked 22nd globally. In 2010, United Nations Development Programme ranked Oman as the most improved country in the world in terms of development during the preceding 40 years. A portion of its economy involves tourism and trading fish, dates and other agricultural produce. The World Bank categorizes Oman as a high-income economy, and as of 2023 Oman ranks as the 48th most peaceful country in the world according to the Global Peace Index. At Ibat al-Awwal in the Dofa Governorate of Oman, a site was discovered in 2011 containing more than 100 surface scatters of stone tools belonging to a regionally specific African lithic industry, the Late Nubian Complex, known previously only from the northeast and Horn of Africa. Two optically stimulated luminescence age place the Arabian Nubian Complex at 106,000 years old. This supports the proposition that early human populations moved from Africa into Arabia during the late Pleistocene. In recent years, surveys uncovered Paleolithic and Neolithic sites on the eastern coast. Main Paleolithic sites include Siwan Bunaim in the Bahr al-Hikman. Archaeological remains are numerous for the Bronze Age Manna and Wadi Sak periods. At the archaeological sites of Bat, Al-Jana, and Al-Ain wheel-turn pottery, handmade stone vessels, metals industry artifacts and monumental architecture have been preserved. There is considerable agreement in sources that traders used frankincense in 1500 BCE. The land of frankincense, the UNESCO World Heritage Site, dramatically illustrates that the incense constituted testimony to South Arabian civilizations. During the 8th century BCE, it is believed that the Yarub, descendant of Khatan, ruled the entire region of Yemen including Oman. Wathil bin Himyar bin Abd Shams, Saba, bin Yashjab, Yaman, bin Yarub bin Khatan later ruled Oman. It is thus believed that the Yaruba were the first settlers in Oman from Yemen. Over centuries tribes from Western Arabia settled in Oman, making a living by fishing, farming, herding or stock breeding. Many present-day Omani families trace their ancestral roots to other parts of Arabia. Arab migration to Oman started from northern western and southwestern Arabia, and those who chose to settle had to compete with the indigenous population for the best arable land. When Arab tribes started to migrate to Oman, there were two distinct groups. A segment of Uz tribe migrated from Yemen in 120 or 200 CE following the collapse of Marid Dam, while the other group migrated a few centuries before the birth of Islam from Nejdi, present-day Saudi Arabia, named Nizari. Other historians believe that the Yaruba from Khatan, which belonged to an older branch, were the first settlers of Oman from Yemen, and then came the Azd. The Azd settlers in Oman are descendants of Nasser bin Azd and were later known as the Al-Azd of Oman. 70 years after the first migration, another branch of Al-Azdi under Malik bin Fahd, the founder of Kingdom of Talakites on the west of Euphrates, is believed to have settled in Oman. According to Al-Kalbi, Malik bin Fahd was the first settler of Al-Azd. He first settled in Kolhat. By this account, Malik, with an armed force of more than 6,000 men and horses, fought against the Mazban, who served an ambiguously named Persian king in the Battle of Salat in Oman and eventually defeated the Persian forces. This account is, however, semi-legendary and seems to condense multiple centuries of migration and conflict as well as an amalgamation of various traditions from not only the Arab tribes but also the region's original inhabitants. In 7th century CE, Omanis came in contact with and accepted Islam. Conversion of Omanis to Islam is ascribed to Amr ibn al-As, sent by Prophet Muhammad during expedition of Sa'id ibn Horata, Hizma. Amr was dispatched to meet with Jafar and Abd, the sons of Julanda who ruled Oman. They appear to have readily embraced Islam. Omanis used to travel to Basra for trade, which was Islam's center during Umayyad Empire. Omanis were granted a section of Basra where they could settle and attend to their needs. Many of the Omanis who settled in Basra became wealthy merchants and under their leader Al-Muhallab ibn Abi Safra, started to expand their influence of power eastwards towards Khorasan. A decade after Vasco da Gama succeeded in his voyage around Cape of Good Hope and to India from 1497 to 1498, Portuguese arrived in Oman and occupied Muscat for 143 years from 1507 to 1650. In need of an outpost to protect their sea lanes, Portuguese built up and fortified the city. Remnants of Portuguese architectural style still exist. Several more Omani cities were colonized in early 16th century by Portuguese to control the entrances of Persian Gulf and trade in the region as part of a web of fortresses from Basra to Hormuz Island. However, in 1552, Ottoman fleet briefly captured the fort in Muscat during their fight for control of Persian Gulf and Indian Ocean, but soon departed after destroying surroundings of the fortress. Later, in the 17th century, using its bases in Oman, Portugal engaged in the largest naval battle ever fought in Persian Gulf. Portuguese force fought against a combined armada of Dutch East India Company and English East India Company supported by Safavid Empire. Result of the battle was a draw but resulted in the loss of Portuguese influence in the Gulf. The British Empire was keen to dominate Southeast Arabia to stifle the growing power of other European states and to curb the Omani maritime power that grew during the 17th century. The British Empire, starting from late 18th century, began to establish a series of treaties with the sultans with the objective of advancing British political and economic interest in Muscat while granting the sultans military protection. In 1798, first treaty between British East India Company and Al-Busaidi dynasty was signed by Sayyid Sultan bin Ahmed. The treaty aimed to block commercial competition of the French and the Dutch as well as obtain concession to build a British factory at Bandar Abbas. A second treaty signed in 1800 which stipulated that a British representative shall reside at the port of Muscat and manage all external affairs with other states. As Omani Empire weakened, British influence over Muscat grew throughout 19th century. Zanzibar was a valuable property as the main slave market of the Swahili coast and a major producer of clothes. It became an increasingly important part of the Omani Empire, a fact reflected by the decision of the Sayyid Saidi bin Sultan to make it the capital of the empire in 1837. In 1856, under British arbitration, Zanzibar and Muscat became two different sultanates. Said bin Taimur became Sultan of Muscat officially on the 10th of February 1932. The rule of Sultan Said, a very complex character, was backed by the British government and characterized as being feudal, reactionary and isolationist. The British government maintained vast administrative control over the Sultanate as the Defence Secretary and Chief of Intelligence, Chief Advisor to the Sultan, and all ministers except for two were British. In 1937, an agreement between the Sultan and Iraq Petroleum Company, IPC, a consortium of oil companies that was 23.75% British-owned, was signed to grant oil concessions to IPC. After failing to discover oil in the Sultanate, IPC intensely interested in promising geological formations near Fahud, an area located within the Imamate. IPC offered financial support to the Sultan to raise an armed force against any potential resistance by the Imamate. Upon the outbreak of World War II, the Sultan of Oman declared war on Germany on September 10, 1939. During the war, Oman had a strategic role in the defense of the United Kingdom's trade routes. Oman was never attacked during the war. In 1943, the Royal Air Force established stations on Mazaira Island, RAF Mazaira, and at Ras Al Hadd. Air Sea Rescue units were also stationed in Oman. Number 244 Squadron RAF flew Bristol Blenheim V light bombers and Vickers Wellington XIIs out of RAF Mazaira on anti-submarine duties in the Gulf of Oman and the Northern Arabian Sea, while Number 209 Squadron RAF, Number 265 Squadron RAF, and Number 321 Squadron RAF flew consolidated PBY Catalinas out of Amrusais on Mazaira Island. On October 16, 1943, the German U-boat U-533 was sunk in the Gulf of Oman after being struck by depth charges dropped by a Bristol Blenheim from Number 244 Squadron RAF. The wreck settled at a depth of 108 meters, approximately 25 nautical miles off the Fujairah coast. 52 crew members died with sole survivor, Matrosenjefreiter Gunther Schmidt, taken aboard HMIS Hiravati near Corfacan and made a prisoner of war. The wreck is now a popular recreational diving site. December 1951 Treaty of Friendship, Commerce and Navigation, covering commerce, oil reserves and navigation, between Oman and the United Kingdom recognized the Sultanate of Muscat and Oman as a fully independent state. In 1955, the exclave coastal Makran Strip acceded to Pakistan and was made a district of its Balochistan province, while Gwadar remained in Oman. On the 8th of September 1958, Pakistan purchased the Gwadar enclave from Oman for $3 million. Gwadar then became a tehsil in the Makran district. In the Dofa War, which began in 1963, pro-Soviet forces were pitted against government troops. As the rebellion threatened the Sultan's control of Dofa, Sultan Said bin Taimur was deposed in a bloodless coup in 1970 by his son Qaboos bin Said with British support. Qaboos expanded the Sultan of Oman's armed forces, modernized the state's administration and introduced social reforms. The uprising was finally put down in 1976 with the help of forces from Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Pakistan and Britain. After deposing his father in 1970, Sultan Qaboos opened up the country, removed Muscat and, from the country's name, embarked on economic reforms, and followed a policy of modernization marked by increased spending on health, education and welfare. Saudi Arabia invested in the development of the Omani education system, sending Saudi teachers on its own expense. Slavery, once a cornerstone of the country's trade and development, was outlawed in 1970. In 1971, Oman joined the United Nations, as did Bahrain, Qatar, and United Arab Emirates. In 1981, Oman became a founding member of the Six-Nation Gulf Cooperation Council. Political reforms were eventually introduced. The country adopted its present national flag in 1995, resembling the previous flag but with a thicker stripe. In 1997, a royal decree was issued granting women the right to vote and stand for election to the Majlis al-Shura, the Consultative Assembly of Oman. 2 women were duly elected to the body. In 2002, voting rights were extended to all citizens over the age of 21, and the first elections to the Consultative Assembly under the new rules were held in 2003. In 2004, the Sultan appointed Oman's first female minister with portfolio, Sheikha Aisha bint Kafan bin Jamil Al Sayyibiyah, to the post of National Authority for Industrial Craftsmanship. Before the Beijing Olympics, Oman became the stop of the Middle East's torch relay on the 14th of April 2008, covering 20 kilometers. Inspired by the Arab Spring uprisings that were taking place throughout the region, protests occurred in Oman during the early months of 2011. While they did not call for the ousting of the regime, demonstrators demanded political reforms, improved living conditions and the creation of more jobs. They were dispersed by riot police in February 2011. Sultan Qaboos reacted by promising jobs and benefits. In October 2011, elections were held to the Consultative Assembly, to which Sultan Qaboos promised greater powers. Qaboos, the Arab world's longest-serving ruler, died on the 10th of January 2020. Leaving no heir on succession, on the 11th of January 2020 Qaboos was succeeded by his first cousin Haytham bin Tariq. Gravel desert plain covers most of central Oman with mountain ranges along the north, Hajar Mountains, and southeast coast, Dofa Mountains, where the country's main cities are located, capital city Muscat, Sohar and Sur in the north, and Salalah in the south and Musandam. Oman's climate is hot and dry in the interior and humid along the coast. The peninsula of Musandam, strategically located on the Strait of Hormuz, is an exclave separated from the rest of Oman by United Arab Emirates. Madha, another exclave, is an enclave within UAE territory located halfway between the Musandam Peninsula and the main body of Oman. Madha, part of Musandam Governorate, covers approximately 75 square kilometers. Madha's boundary settled in 1969 with northeast corner of Madha barely 10 meters from Fujairah Road. Within Madha exclave is UAE enclave called Nizwa, belonging to the Emirate of Sharjah, situated about 8 kilometers west of New Madha's town and consists of 40 houses with a clinic and telephone exchange. Desert shrub and desert grass, common in southern Arabia, are found in Oman, but vegetation is sparse in the interior plateau, which is predominantly gravel desert. The greater monsoon rainfall in Dofa and the mountains makes the growth there more luxuriant during summer. Coconut palms grow plentifully on Dofa's coastal plains. Frankincense is produced in the hills with abundant oleander and varieties of acacia. Hajar Mountains are distinct ecoregion, the highest points in eastern Arabia with wildlife that includes Arabian tar. Indigenous mammals include leopard, hyena, fox, wolf, hare, oryx and ibex. Birds include vulture, eagle, stork, bustard, Arabian partridge, bee-eater, falcon and sunbird. In 2001, Oman had 9 endangered species of mammals, 5 endangered types of birds and 19 threatened plant species. Decrees have been passed to protect endangered species, including Arabian leopard, Arabian oryx, mountain gazelle, goited gazelle, Arabian tar, green sea turtle, hawksbill turtle and olive ridley turtle. However, Arabian Oryx Sanctuary is the first site ever to be deleted from UNESCO's World Heritage List, following the government's 2007 decision to reduce the site's area by 90% to clear the way for oil prospectors. In recent years, Oman has become a popular spot for whale watching, highlighting the critically endangered Arabian humpback whale, sperm whales, and pygmy blue whales. Oman allowed the British Royal Navy and Indian Navy access to the port facilities of Al Duqm Port and Dry Dock. Oman's fishing industry contributed 0.78% to the GDP in 2016. Fish exports between 2000 and 2016 grew from US $144 million to US $172 million, an increase of 19.4%. The main importer of Omani fish in 2016 was Vietnam, which imported almost US $80 million, 46.5% in value, and the second biggest importer was the United Arab Emirates, which imported around US $26 million, 15%. The other main importers are Saudi Arabia, Brazil and China. Oman's consumption of fish is almost 2 times the world's average. The ratio of exported fish to total fish captured in tons fluctuated between 49 and 61% between 2006 and 2016. Omani's strengths in the fishing industry comes from having a good market system, a long coastline of 3,165 kilometers and wide water area. However, Oman lacks sufficient infrastructure, research and development, quality and safety monitoring, together with a limited contribution by the fishing industry to GDP. Dates represent 80% of all fruit crop production. Furthermore, date farms employ 50% of the total agricultural area in the country. Oman's estimated production of dates in 2016 is 350,000 tons, making it the 9th largest producer of dates. Oman's total export of dates was $12.6 million in 2016, almost equivalent to Oman's total imported value of dates, which was $11.3 million in 2016. The main importer is India, around 60% of all imports. Oman's date exports remained steady between 2006 and 2016. Oman is considered to have good infrastructure for date production and support provision to cultivation and marketing, but lacks innovation in farming and cultivation, industrial coordination in the supply chain, and encounter high losses of unused dates. Tourism in Oman has grown considerably recently, and is expected to be one of the largest industries in the country. The World Travel and Tourism Council stated that Oman is the fastest growing tourism destination in the Middle East. Tourism contributed 2.8% to the Omani GDP in 2016. It grew from 1.3 billion US dollars in 2009 to 1.8 billion US dollars in 2017, plus 42.3% growth. Citizens of the Gulf Cooperation Council, GCC, including Omanis who are residing outside of Oman, represent the highest ratio of all tourists visiting Oman, estimated to be 48%. The second highest number of visitors comes from other Asian countries, which account for 17% of the total number of visitors. A challenge to tourism development in Oman is the reliance on the government-owned firm, Omran, as a key actor to develop the tourism sector, which potentially creates a market barrier to entry of private sector actors and a crowding out effect. Another key issue to the tourism sector is deepening the understanding of the ecosystem and biodiversity in Oman to guarantee their protection and preservation. Ecotourism is a growing segment of Omani tourism. One site in particular is Ras Al Jins, also known as Turtle Beach, is a popular destination due to the annual nesting of the critically endangered hawksbill turtle, the endangered green turtle, the olive ridley turtle and the loggerhead turtle. Oman has one of the most diverse environments in the Middle East with various tourist attractions and is particularly well known for adventure and cultural tourism. Muscat, the capital of Oman, was named the second best city to visit in the world in 2012 by the travel guide publisher Lonely Planet. Muscat also was chosen as the capital of Arab tourism of 2012. In November 2019, Oman made the rule of visa on arrival an exception and introduced the concept of e-visa for tourists from all nationalities. Under the new laws, visitors were required to apply for the visa in advance. By 2020, Oman's population exceeded 4.5 million. The total fertility rate in 2020 was estimated to be 2.8 children born per woman. This rate has been rapidly decreasing in recent years. About half of the population lives in Muscat and the Batina coastal plain northwest of the capital. Omanis are predominantly of Arab, Baluchi and African origins. Around 20% of Omanis are of Baloch descent whose ancestors migrated to Oman centuries ago, and are now considered native. Omani society is largely tribal and encompasses three major identities, that of the tribe, the Ibadi faith and maritime trade. The first two identities are closely tied to tradition and are especially prevalent in the interior of the country, owing to lengthy periods of isolation. The third identity pertains mostly to Muscat and the coastal areas of Oman, and is reflected by business, trade and the diverse origins of many Omanis who trace their roots to Baloch, Al-Lawaisha, Persia and historical Omani Zanzibar. Gwaida, a region of Balochistan, was a colony of Oman for more than a century, and in the 1960s, Pakistan took over the land. Many people in this area are Omani and Pakistani. Outwardly, Oman shares many of the cultural characteristics of its Arab neighbors, particularly those in the Gulf Cooperation Council. Despite these similarities, important factors make Oman unique in the Middle East. These result as much from geography and history as from culture and economics. The relatively recent and artificial nature of the state in Oman makes it difficult to describe a national culture. However, sufficient cultural heterogeneity exists within its national boundaries to make Oman distinct from other Arab states of the Persian Gulf. Oman's cultural diversity is greater than that of its Arab neighbors, given its historical expansion to the Swahili coast and the Indian Ocean. Oman has a long tradition of shipbuilding, as maritime travel played a major role in the Omanis' ability to stay in contact with the civilizations of the ancient world. So was one of the most famous shipbuilding cities of the Indian Ocean. An Al-Ganja ship takes one whole year to build. Other types of Omani ship include as Sunbak and Al-Badan. The male national dress in Oman consists of the dishdasha, a simple, ankle-length, collarless gown with long sleeves. Most frequently white in color, the dishdasha may also appear in a variety of other colors. Its main adornment, a tassel, furaka, sewn into the neckline, can be impregnated with perfume. Underneath the dishdasha, men wear a plain, wide strip of cloth wrapped around the body from the waist down. The most noted regional differences in dishdasha designs are the style with which they are embroidered, which varies according to age group. On formal occasions, a black or beige cloak called a bisht may cover the dishdasha. The embroidery edging the cloak is often in silver or gold thread, and it is intricate in detail. Omani men wear two types of headdress. The gutra, also called musa, is a square piece of woven wool or cotton fabric of a single color, decorated with various embroidered patterns. The kuma is a cap that is the headdress worn during leisure hours. Some men carry the asa, a stick which can have practical uses or is simply used as an accessory during formal events. Omani men, on the whole, wear sandals on their feet. The janbia, dagger, forms part of the national dress and men wear the janbia on all formal public occasions and festivals. It is traditionally worn at the waist. Sheaths may vary from simple covers to ornate silver or gold decorated pieces. A depiction of a janbia appears on the national flag. Omani women wear eye-catching national costumes with distinctive regional variations. All costumes incorporate vivid colors and vibrant embroidery and decorations. The Omani women's traditional costume comprises several garments. The kandura, which is a long tunic whose sleeves or radun are adorned with hand-stitched embroidery of various designs. The dishdasha is worn over a pair of loose-fitting trousers, tied at the ankles, known as a surwal. Women also wear a head shawl, most commonly referred to as the lihaf. As of 2014, women reserve wearing their traditional dress for special occasions, and instead wear a loose black cloak called an abaya over their personal choice of clothing, whilst in some regions, particularly amongst the Bedouin, the burqa is still worn. Women wear hijab, and though some women cover their faces and hands, most do not. The Sultan has forbidden the covering of faces in public office.